Sim Shalom, as you all know, is the climactic 19th finale bracha of the Shemona Esrei. The Shemona Esrei is extremely structured. What do I mean by it? It's extremely structured. So if we had time, I could take you through the 19 brachos and show you how seamlessly each one connects to the next. But the main point we see is that the Shemona Esrei is broken into three major groupings. The first three, the middle 13, and the last three. They are called, in the language of the Gemara in Brachos, the following Daf Lamed Daled Amud Aleph, the following phrase, Shevach Bakasha Haidah, meaning the first three brachos are called Shevach, which means praising God. The middle three are called Bakasha, which means asking Hashem for your needs. And the last three are called Huda, which means basically saying thank you. This Gemara is brought down lahalacha in the Rambam at the very beginning of Hilchos Tefillah. It's brought down in the Shulchan Aruch. And of course, that is our experience. It is exactly the way you would go into a king. You go into HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for sure it's that way. But if you go to a flesh and blood king, you don't just say, King, this is what I need. You first say His Royal Majesty, and then afterwards you make your needs and you present your case. And then before you leave, you show your appreciation and you thank the great king. It's exactly the same way that your teenage daughter, I'm talking to those of you from my age group. I have just on the other side of this wall, my wonderful 16-year-old. If she needs something from me, the first thing she will do is compliment my tie. That's when you know you're in trouble. Okay, she's starting with the compliments. Then she says, Abba, okay, do you mind if I just help myself a little bit to the insides of your wallet? And then at the end, if I'm lucky, I'll get a hug, I'll get a thank you, a beautiful, beautiful appreciation. And that's what we do when we talk to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Of course, it goes without saying that the reason why we do this is not that Hashem needs our Shevach. Hashem does not need our Hodah. He doesn't need our pleases. He doesn't need our thank yous. What HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants is a connection with us. It's just, and now I'm quoting to you from the Mabit. The Mabit was one of the great rabbis of Tzfat in the 16th century. He comes along in his Sefer Beis Elokim and says, we need to talk to Hashem this way because for us, we need to remind ourselves that this is real. Kadosh Baruch Hu is the only address for all our needs. Doctors are just basically his shliach, his messengers for these things. Our MBA, our financial acumen is just Hashem's way of allowing us to make money through the laws of nature, but it's all him. Everything is a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem brings Mashiach. Hashem takes care of our social needs. Everything is from a Kadosh Baruch Hu. By praising him and saying thank you, it reminds us about how true these things are. Now, let's have a look at the third and final way that we say thank you to Kadosh Baruch Hu. We say thank you to Kadosh Baruch Hu first in what's called Birkas Ritzei. Birkas Ritzei is we thank Kadosh Baruch Hu through the lenses of the Beis HaMikdash. Then comes the classic thank you called Modim. And the third and final thank you is the bracha called Sim Shalom. We say to Kadosh Baruch Hu, Sim, please impose Shalom, Sim Shalom, or Shalom Rav, as we say in the evening. Wait a second. What's happening over here? We're not saying thank you. We're actually asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for Shalom. Everyone wants peace. No one likes war, whether it's national war or whether it's a personal strife that we have with people that we love or our neighbors. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, help out with the Shalom. It sounds like a bakasha to me. It actually sounds like that this bracha is totally in the wrong place. If you ask me, I would put it amongst those 13, maybe the 13th climactic bakasha request that we have. But what does it have to do with Hudah? What does it have to do with saying thank you? Let's make the question even stronger. There's a sefer called the Kuzari. Whoa, I forgot. There we go. Here's my volume of the Kuzari, good old Kuzari. In Maimer Dalet, he brings the Sefer HaYetzirah. The Sefer Yetzirah is the book of creation. It is attributed, as he says, to Avram Avinu. He wrote it. And in there, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is called a king. But his majesty, his kingship, is expressed in three different ways. Number one, Melech Bekiso. He's the king on his throne. The king on his throne is obviously everything that makes him majestic. He has a palace. He has a throne room. He has a keser. He has a beautiful, beautiful crown. He has the royal robes, the trappings of royalty. That's called Melech Bekiso, the king on his throne. Then there's Melech B'mishpat. Melech B'mishpat means there's the king in his role of judgment. So he runs a country. The wise, benevolent king has to decide every small little detail of how his country is run. That's called the Melech B'mishpat. He is the final arbitrator of all the laws of the land. And thirdly, he's called Melech B'milchamtei. Melech, the king that goes out and wages war. The king leads the army. Actually, when the Rambam talks about Hilchos Malachim, the laws of kings, he calls it Hilchos Malachim or Milchamosem and their wars. Kings lead battles. Now, the Holy Sfarim tell us that these three things correspond to the three parts of the Shemona Esrei. Melech Bekiso, like that's the king, where we say you're Gadol, you're Gibor, you're Neira, you're Melech Meimis, Machaya, Matzmiach Yeshua, you're Melech Kodesh. Then the Melech HaMishpat, HaTachenein, Hashivenu, Slachna, Re'ena, Refe'enu, Baruch Aleinu, all the way to Yerushalayim and Mashiach and Shema Kolenu. Those are our needs. So we go to the king who's there in judgment, who gives out the various goodies that the Malchus has to offer. And at the end, you're saying, thank you, but that's called Melech B'milchamtei, the king at war. What does war have to do with us saying thank you to Kadosh Baruch Hu? How is this working? So now let's take a specific look at this last bracha, Sim Shalom, and how it's structured. I have a lot of questions, but Rabbi Foxbronner gave me a limited amount of time. Let's focus on two things. How does the bracha begin? Sim Shalom. Sim Shalom. If you notice beforehand, I translated the word Sim Shalom, impose Shalom. Put peace. That's not the right word we're looking for. The right word should be Tain Shalom, give us peace. We're asking Hashem, please give us Shalom, give us peace. Now it happens to be, the Abadram points out correctly, that Sim Shalom follows the rules that we always try and imitate the way it is first sourced in the Torah itself. So in Birkas Kayanim, it says in Parshas Naso, it says, V'yasehem lecha shalom, V'yasem lecha shalom. Hashem should impose shalom. But there again, it begs the same question. It should be V'yitain Hashem shalom. What does it mean, Sima shalom? It's my first question on the structure of the actual bracha itself. The second one is to identify how Sim Shalom, the 19th bracha of the Shemona Esrei, is actually structured. It's structured a little bit, while in England we call it a trapezium. Apparently in America it's called a trapezoid. It means something that goes up like a ladder, then goes flat, and then goes down like that. So that structure, two parallel lines, and then things going like that. Remember that? Trapezium, trapezoid, whatever you want to call it. That's how it seems to be structured. We say Sim Shalom. I'm going to read out Teva, Uvracha, Chen, V'chesed, V'rachmim. Right? So again, Sim Shalom, that's one. Teva, Uvracha, Chen, V'chesed, V'rachmim. You got 6 steps that takes you up. Then it says in the middle, it talks about So the central part of the bracha focuses on arpanecha. We should be in the light of your eyes. And then begins the descent. Ki b'arpanecha nesachak to Hashem nekim teres chaim, avas chesed, tzedakah, bracha, rachmin, chaim, shalom. So you got the 6 steps down. 6 steps up begins with shalom. The 6 steps down end with shalom. In the middle, we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu, let us be in your eyes. Let us be in your focus. Let us be like this light I have over here, okay, that is shining. That should be HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ha'aras panim, that should be in our face over here. This last question is really obviously the key to the answer and understanding how everything works over here. So la'at la'at, let's go through this step by step. What's the real translation of the word hodah? When I said to you earlier, my teenage daughter, she asked me for something. It could be your kid, says, Daddy, okay, whatever, down in Georgia, it says, Daddy, can I have the keys to the Lexus? And you say, sure, honey, here they are, and that's it. So then she gives you a thank you. No. Hodah is more than just a thank you. Hodah comes from the word hodas baldin, which means in English an acknowledgement, meaning it's that moment of recognition that everything comes from you. If that phrase, hodas baldin, just to give you where I get that from, if I say to you, you owe me money, and you say, correct, I owe you money, and there's a certain moment now when the relationship between us and myself and you has been directed that you are, so to speak, submitting yourself to me, at least on that level of the $50 that you owe me. With the Kadosh Baruch Hu, when we say Hodah, what we're doing is that after we have made all our requests, from Das all the way to Shema Kolenu, those 13 needs of man that cover every single possible need that a human being could ever have, they're all there in those 13 bakashos without a single exception. Every possible human need is found in those 13 bakashos. At this point now, there's a tremendous clarity that we are completely and totally in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hands. And we say, Modem anachnu lach. In those 2 words, we're acknowledging that without you, we have literally nothing. Without you, I can't cross a road safely. Without you, I can't even breathe properly. Nothing. I have absolutely nothing at all whatsoever. So that's what Hodah is all about. Hodah is really, really that recognition that everything is really from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now we understand the king at war. Melech b'milchamtoi. The king is waging war against who? Not against the enemy. It's against his people, but not a literal war. The war means that when you wage war, you're imposing yourself on your subjects in the most incredibly powerful way, because you want for their best interest that everyone should submit themselves to you. Now we're talking about the perfect king who's all wise and sees the whole realm. And he understands fully that for the country to be 100% in capacity, here's where the port has to be. This has to be the main city. We need to make a highway over here. We need to take resources from here and reallocate them over there. King asks himself one question: how can I maximize the potential of the full realm? And to do that, every small, teeny weeny little part of his realm has to fall into line under his malchus, under his royalty. That's what we call the king b'milchama. It's fascinating. The word milchama is the same word as lechem, which means bread. When you conquer something, like my dinner, come to papa, the bread comes into my mouth, then it becomes part of me. Every single part of the king's realm becomes a function of the king. Echad ha'am, Para said to Yosef, I am that one that will unite the people for king and country. So that is called the king at war, when the nation submits themselves to the high authority of the king. That's when you have true unity. Everyone is there for the king, and the king is there for his people, and nothing else exists. Think about it. Where does it come that Klal Yisrael has sinas chinam? After the Churban, or the time of the Churban, when everything was falling apart, sinas chinam means if my nose fights with my finger, so that's crazy. That can only be because I've ceased to become a human being. But if I'm one body, so every part of my body is working with everything else, there's no tension, there's no competition. It's all Menachem Nissim. In exactly the same way, the king says, okay, you have to be the scientist, and you have to be the lawyer, and you have to be the baker, and you have to clean the streets. And everyone, according to their potential, does what is necessary to bring out the maximum of the nation. There's no competition, because we're all one thing and one thing only. We're there, submitting ourselves to the king. Nothing else exists. Sim Shalom. Sim Shalom is not a request. It's not like asking Hashem to solve my medical issues, to solve my health issues. It's not like asking Hashem to bring Mashiach. It is an acknowledgement that Osei Shalom Bimraimov, only the king above can create this perfect harmony where every single component of his creation is under God, like a beautiful orchestra, where everyone is playing their instrument to perfection, in harmony with everyone else, underneath the conductor. Sim Shalom is the ultimate hodah. It is the ultimate acknowledgement that what makes this world function is by just giving ourselves over, submitting ourselves to the higher king. So we have those 6 steps from Sim, Shalom, Tov, Rachim, V'Chesed, and then in the middle we have this Ba'ar Panecha, this bathing in the sunshine of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence, and then we have the 6 steps going down. But I want to show you there's something much, much deeper going on behind the scenes. You tell me whether it's not the most beautiful thing you've heard all day. It's not my Torah, it's the Torah of the Vilna Gaon. Where is this Torah found? At the end of the Purim story. Here, listen to this. The Vilna Gaon, on the last pasuk of the Megillah. Open up your Megillah. You just read it very recently. What do we say? Ki Mordechai HaYehudi Mishneh LeMelech Achashverosh. This is the final story. Mordechai is now second to the king. The Gadol HaYehudim, the Ratzel HaReiv Echav, Deirish Teiv LaAmoi, the Dever Shalom L'chol Zaro. And with this, the Megillah ends. The Dever Shalom L'chol Zaro. That's all he wants. The Megillah ends that he's searching for that perfect shalom for every single Jew. The Gra points out this step of 6, without going into the Kabbalistic side. You see, for example, there are 6 books of the Mishnais, and they end with Shalom at the end of the Mishnah of Oxen. We'll quote it in a moment. There's the 5 books of Torah. He says the number 6 is the Torah Sheba'al Peh that unites the 5 books. He says there's 6 brachos in Birkos Kohanim. Yivarechecha, Yishmerecha, Ya'er, Chuneka, Yisa, and Shalom. He says in Ya'alav Yavo, you have Ya'alav Yavo, then he says L'Teiva, L'Chein, L'Chesed, L'Rachim, L'Chaim, or L'Shalom. And then he adds that you see this, the climax of Tefillah. Every road, says the Gra, ends in Shalom because all the paths of life is to get that to that moment where everything is in perfect harmony under HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. So now we see that this little trapezium, and then down over there, the centerpiece is Ba'ar Panecha. We bathe in a Kadosh Baruch Hu's light. We feel that closeness to him and that clarity and recognition of how lucky we are to be in the world with that Gilu Panim. That moment when the Hester Panim, the hiddenness, is removed, and we see the beauty of his closeness and how Kadosh Baruch Hu runs every small little thing. That's that moment when Shalom becomes the easiest and most powerful and most beautiful experience that we as Torah Jews can experience. And now I want to get to my main point, because I just spent 4 weeks in Miami, Florida. It wasn't my choice. Israel wouldn't let the Nissel family back home. And I got to speak to a lot of people. And a lot of people are actually suffering. Corona has been a huge toll in a horrific way. Actually, just yesterday, I spoke to a friend of mine. He's been without a job for a month. He is in the catering service for people that travel to Poland. Now, the whole thing is closed. He hasn't worked in a year. It's like a crazy, crazy thing. I have heard about massive increases in people with anxiety, people with depression. This corona has broken a lot of people. It's broken marriages. It's not just that. Again, very recently, one of my friends in Kyiv, he cried to me. He said to me, I have this Kyiv organization. He says, Corona, we're working at 20% capacity. Last week, or maybe not 2 weeks ago, in Miami, somebody asked me the following question. He's not the first, but he's the one that stays in my mind. He says, Rabbi Nissel, I can deal with everything. All I want to know is one thing and one thing only. What's Hashem's game plan? What does he want? So I'll tell you what I said to him, but now you'll understand it on a much deeper level. I said to him, you're missing the whole point. Sim Shalom, the bracha, the climactic bracha Sim Shalom, is making a declaration that you don't need to understand what the king is doing. What you need to do is put yourself into his hands. That's what Sim Shalom means. Kadosh Baruch Hu is doing things. Stop trying to figure him out. You will not succeed. You will never succeed. You will succeed as much as those Jews in the 5th chapter of the Purim story, when Klal Yisrael was crashing down. Every single Jew had literally their own personalized Nazi Amalekite who is going to kill them on the 13th of Adar. Everyone's going to die. Everything is lost. They had no one to have faith in. And all that's left for them to say to Kadosh Baruch Hu is, we don't know. We're in your hands. That's all we can do. So I just want to say to everyone, today, we feel it more than ever. I was just thinking, I'm talking to people in Georgia. A couple of months ago, Georgia was in the news. How crazy was that? You see how Hashem is playing a game with the whole world? That some farmers in Georgia can decide the power of the American government, which in turn is the power of the whole world? How can that be? Because Baruch is screaming out, stop trusting him and stop saying, this is how it's going to work out. And if only this would happen, if Hashem could just listen to me, everything would be good. No. Hashem at this level is breaking us down to that point where we say one thing and one thing only. Sim Shalom. It's in your hands. You impose the peace. We're clueless to what's going on over here. And then we can start to a little bit to enjoy the ride because we're in his good hands. And a little bit we can laugh with him like we did on Purim. When you see how crazy everyone thinks that they're controlled. Science is going to bring us all the solutions, and the next day a new British variant will come out. So what do you say? You say Sim Shalom. It's the climax of the whole tefillah, of everything we've done, is to reach that point where we say, Kadosh Baruch Hu, we don't know. We're just your citizens. We put yourself in your hands, and you, the king, unite us all. Sinas Chinam's gone. Hatred of our fellow Jew is gone. We're all under one Hashem, and that's what brings the Melech HaMashiach. The Marsha in Megillah brings down. He brings a medrash and says, what's the first words that Mashiach's going to come and say when he sees us? You guessed it, it's Shalom. He brings a pasuk in Yeshayahu, Nun Beis, Manava Laharim. Hi. Mevase Mashmiya Shalom. This is it. He's got to be Mashmiya. The first things he's going to say is Shalom. We need that Shalom. But that Shalom has to begin with you saying Sim Shalom and really meaning it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this world is a crazy world, but one thing we know, it's in your good hands. And if it's in your good hands, for our panecha, we can enjoy the ultimate pleasure, which is to bask in the glory of your countenance. May we all be zoche together, may we all merit to be able to see that Shalom of the Melech Mashiach speedily in our days. Thank you so much for listening.